of course, we got to talk about this huge market wipeout that's been happening over the past few weeks or so, but mainly it's been the past week. It's been extra brutal, and yeah, basically, if you're in like the S&P 500 index funds, maybe you didn't notice that much, but even the S&P 500 dipped quite a bit by like S&P 500 standards. But I know a lot of people on this show, including myself, we have stocks in Bitcoin related proxies and like miners and MicroStrategy, even the Bitcoin ETFs, which have dipped a lot. So yeah, anything to do with more of the risk on side has been brutalized. And yeah, Bitcoin has crashed below 84,000. Is actually kind of hovering around 83,000 as we speak. We're recording this on Thursday night of the 27th of February. So yeah, it's been really rough, and I gotta say I did not foresee Bitcoin pulling back to this level, at least in the short term. And I was telling people how next time it pulls back, that'll be the bottom, and then it'll bounce right back up. And I've been wrong every time I've said that, and I've said that like 2 or 3 times already. So I said, oh, it's not gonna, if it drops below 90K, then that's the bottom. And then dropped to 84. I'm like, okay, it dropped to 84K, that's the bottom. And then now it's below 84K. So now I'm saying maybe it'll bottom at 80. I think maybe that's possible, but we can talk about that later. I just wanted to show you guys some data that may indicate that the bottom is at least near, if not there already. So this is what's called a heat map. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but and it's probably out of date because this only goes up to the 26th, and this is taken yesterday. But the heat map is basically like, where do people have leveraged positions on Bitcoin? And as you can see, there's a bunch of leverage short position. So if it's above the current price, then it's a short position. So you can see that there's a bunch of, like, the lighter the color, the more leverage there is. So there's a bunch of leverage at around 90K or just under it. But it's 90K seems kind of far off, right? I mean, we're not like super far off. 83K we're at right now, but it's kind of far off. But we're closer to maybe like the bottom parts, which you can see that a lot of leverage has been wiped out already. But there might still be some, like a little bit of leverage around the 82 to 84K section. So I guess that's why Bitcoin's been kind of weak, because again, this is like people can take out more leverage if they wanted to at this level. And I'm sure some people are, because degens are going to be degens. I'm not going to personally take out any more leverage. And if I have cash, I'll of course buy, but I'm not touching leverage. Maybe that's a mistake if Bitcoin starts bouncing hard, but yeah, I just don't want to get wiped out, but some people will take leverage positions. And if that happens, if people start piling into leverage longs, I mean, then we might see another dip as the hedge funds and the big whale money wants to, crash the price down and trigger more liquidations, and then that triggers even more. But it looks like from this chart, though, the leverage is mostly cleared out. Again, this is maybe out of date because I took this or I stole this from somebody on Twitter yesterday. But yeah, it looks like maybe the leverage is pretty much gone, if not, fully gone. So that might be a good sign that we're bottoming, is what I'm trying to say. Now, another sign, another glimmer of hope that we might be at least close to a bottom is the fear and greed index. So this is the crypto fear and greed index, which is different than the stock market one, but the stock market one is also pretty low in extreme fear territory. I think the stock market one, it's the way it works is that it ranks from 1 to 100, 1 being like just absolute extreme fear, and then 100 being extreme greed. And the stock market one was at like 20 or 19, if I remember correctly, right now. And then yesterday, the extreme fear in the crypto market hit 10. So that's very low, as you can see, like, the this chart with the red line. You can see how, like, it doesn't, if it dips down to 10, it usually doesn't stay there for very long. And I just checked again the crypto fear and greed before we started this show, and it ticked back up to 16, but 16 is still considered extreme fear. So we're not out of the woods yet, but maybe there's some glimmer of hope. And usually, like, as I said, it doesn't stay at extreme fear for that long. So usually that means it's time to buy, right? Like, if it's in extreme fear, I know people tend to overcomplicate it, but uh, I always say that I'm gonna follow it, right? Just buy when it's extreme fear, and then sell when it's extreme greed. And for some reason, I just forget about it and never do it, and I always like lose money that way. So hopefully, I've learned my lesson for the future to actually follow the fear and greed index. Unfortunately, I'm kind of out of cash at the moment, so I can't be buying big. But if you do still have cash somehow, maybe, I mean, this is not financial advice, but usually it's good. It's a good time to buy when it's extreme fear. But anyways, all of that aside, I just want to kind of toss the question back to you guys. What do you guys think of the kind of market so far? How do you feel? Are you stressed, and do you think that the bottom is near, or when's the pain going to end, is kind of the overarching question. I don't know who wants to take it, but feel free to jump in.
Yeah, it's been a huge mess for like the past week or so. It's been really bad. Like to most of us, or maybe me specifically, you would think, oh, it's just a day, it's probably okay. Then the day becomes the next day, and then the next day, and it becomes like a whole week. So this entire week, um, I'll say personally, I'm the type of guy who has sort of like an emergency fund. I'm probably like the most uh I'm like the most safest person here out of the bunch of us. And even for me, it's been getting pretty tough. Like, yes, the S&P hasn't moved a whole lot, but it definitely has moved, and I have noticed it on my brokerage accounts. And it's not ideal to have that number lowered. And even on the other end, I do own Bitcoin miners. Like Bitfarms has been doing extremely rough for me, and it's not pleasant to see a new price every single morning. Like, who wants to see that? No one. And I even own IBIT, which is a Bitcoin ETF, and that's been lowering. And then I've been, with the cash available, just trying to dollar cost average and buy every time it continuously dips. It's been like a really tough week, and we can only hope that this hopefully ends sooner than later. But um, yeah, I literally just got paid today, and that entire paycheck just went to my brokerage account so I can like try to deploy more. But after that, I'm gonna have to wait a bit, and I swear I have no cash, and that's coming from me too, guys. You guys know. I got couch cushions. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it's been tough. And is this the bottom? I don't know for sure. It's like that. I don't know. There's like a terminology for this, or like kind of like a saying, I guess, to investors. But you don't know when the next disaster is going to be. No one knows and can ever predict the future. And then who would have thought that I'd be right now? So, um, I personally think it's the best to always keep cash aside, but I personally also don't know if this is the bottom because I don't have like that magic fortune teller, you know, glass like circle thing, right? So I don't know for a fact, but it could be edging towards the bottom, but the only thing I'll say is we'll wait and see. So who knows?
Well, Dom's couch cushions are legendary. Every time there's a red day, he's like, I'm gonna buy. I'm like, how do you still have money? You just gotta like dig a little deeper in the couch cushions, and there's always money there somehow. And then if you run out of money, you sell the couch cushions, and then there's another wad of cash right there. Yeah, good points though. Anyone else wants to jump in and impart their opinion?
Are we at the bottom? It's tough to say. It's I feel like we've been thinking that we're near the bottom for a long time, and we haven't been at the bottom. So I don't know if necessarily the route is to try and time the bottom, because I just don't think you're going to be able to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, I've been just basically buying every time I see that it's low, when I can, or lower. Is this the end of Bitcoin? No. Are we gonna keep going up from here? Yes. That's kind of my prediction. I don't know if the reversal will happen, tomorrow, next week, a month from now, 2 months from now, but I'm confident that the reversal will happen in the not too distant future, and that we will be able to reap the benefits of buying in these dips here for the future recovery. But we're kind of have to see how it works. This last few weeks were pretty brutal on my portfolio. Not happy, but I'm confident that in the long term this will play out, and we will get the bull run or a bull run that is superior to what we've already had. And if we get something that's better than what we already have, we should be able to get some seriously large gains. That's kind of my perspective. So this is just a time to keep accumulating, because we have a bit of a period here where you can get it for a little bit cheaper. Might as well keep ramping up on that front from my perspective, and that's kind of how I've been going through it. Because again, if Bitcoin can be at 108,000, people will pay for it at 108,000. People will pay for it. Why wouldn't you buy it at 82,000? So might as come on. It just seems pretty self-explanatory to me to keep buying right now. And then with regards to miners and stuff, just keep averaging into those as well, because maybe not to the same extent, but if we can get a nice bull run going where Bitcoin's price is increasing a lot faster than percentage wise than it has been so far for the last month and a half, 2 months kind of thing, then the miners will have a nice opportunity to run too. So you can reap some nice gains on those potentially as well. We'll have to see how it plays out in the end though, because it's really if the momentum changes for the miners, they can move massive amounts. And there's just no guarantee that when momentum will change, if momentum will change. As far as I'm concerned, the thesis on the miners is pretty much consistent. It's just a matter of when this turns around and not getting too overextended while trying to buy the dips, etc. So that's kind of my thoughts on the whole scenario. I think we'll be out of this in 3 months from now. I think we'll all be going, why didn't we buy more at 83, 80,000, 82, whatever. So that's kind of my perspective.
The meme was the guy who's Bitcoin is 100K or something, and then he's like, oh, I'm so stupid, why didn't I buy it? And then Bitcoin crashes to 80K, and then he's like, I'm not buying that shit. It's don't be that guy, right? Just don't be him. Sunil, your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly if we're at the bottom. Every time I say we are, it goes down another 10%. So I've been wrong already on that. Every dip kind of feels like the last dip before we go up, because we're all kind of anticipating the true Bitcoin bull market started. A lot of people are saying that we haven't even started the real bull market yet. So we'll see where that goes. But I mean, my opinion on the current price action, I'm not really a huge believer in political news stories moving markets as much as the CNBC world kind of pushes. I think we just experienced a gap fill of the Trump bump. There was a massive blow off the top that occurred in November and December after Trump, and that happened for a lot of risk assets. Anticipating a more favorable regulatory framework around Bitcoin and tech stocks. And I think that we just got the Trump bump gap fill, because everything's kind of come back down to where the post-election rally kind of started. We're technically, if it's going to be a true gap fill, we're gonna go down another 10 or 15% of some assets. I kind of look at this from different angles. I'm looking at MicroStrategy, which kind of front runs Bitcoin on the way up and the way down. So MicroStrategy has been getting beat up for a month while Bitcoin's been getting beat up for like a couple of weeks. So I think MicroStrategy just crossed over into oversold territories with the relative strength index. Like the RSI has just kind of crossed over into oversold yesterday. So you're seeing a little bit of a divergence in price action, and that's usually an indication of a bottom in at least like the Bitcoin world, and or near bottom. Like in the Tesla world, I'm seeing a lot of Elon derangement syndrome kick in with like on Twitter. A lot of upset people who are blaming Elon's political activity for the current price action. I mean, it's kind of hitting every stock in the risk markets right now. Tesla happens to be a high beta stock. So I just think that that's kind of what we're seeing right now. When you see a blow off the top occur, you do need to see a gap fill. It's like good for the market, it's healthy. I think things are looking bright for the Bitcoin bull market. I didn't think that like the gap fill would be as low as 82,000, or might go to the high 70s if it keeps dropping. But I guess it always happens. It's never surprising. It's always like surprising as it's happening, but it's never surprising after the fact. If you look at the chart patterns, they look like as they always look. So, and I also think that like right now, like markets, especially things like risk assets, are kind of a barometer for like markets are always seen as a barometer for the popularity of the president. I think that like it's just kind of like a barometer that like Trump has like used up a lot of his political capital post Trump bump with the situation in Ukraine. He's putting tariffs on Europe now. He's putting tariffs on China. He's putting tariffs on Canada, Mexico. He's forcing a ceasefire in the Middle East. There's a lot going on right now. He's like ramped everything up to 11, and the market does on a day-to-day basis react to news in the market. But then like if it hits a bunch of sell orders, it becomes a sell-off. And I just think that like the market was waiting for the panic to achieve its gap fill, and we're probably gonna bottom in the next 2 to 5 days. And I think that within a month or two, things are gonna start looking a lot nicer. And I anticipate my leveraged MSTR position, which is actually a very small percentage of my MicroStrategy position at this point, but it's been decimated since December. So I'm just like eagerly waiting to get out of that. But back in January, I did achieve my goal of getting as many MSTR shares as I wanted to get for the year. I just didn't reach my goal of getting out of the leveraged product. So that's just like kind of my last trade of the year. And then I could just kind of chill while the Bitcoin bull market that we expect kind of plays out.
Yeah, and talking about MicroStrategy, did you see that post by Jim Cramer today? Or there was a news story about how Jim Cramer was saying to avoid MicroStrategy, and we all know that inverse Cramer is 100% correct. like that time he
it's a bottom signal.
Yeah, he said something good about Palantir, and then Palantir just immediately started dropping after he said that, and it was like literally he nailed the top. Like as soon as he said one good thing about Palantir, the stock just crashed immediately. So if that's any indication, then that means that the next, like, I don't know, 5 to 10 trading days, like the next 1 to 2 weeks, we're probably going to see a bottom in MicroStrategy, and probably that means Bitcoin by extension as well, because it's hard to see one bottom without the other bottom as well. So yeah, I'm pretty hopeful. With regards to the miners thing that Tristan brought up earlier, I just think that for the miners to really outperform Bitcoin, there needs to be miners need a special kind of condition to outperform Bitcoin. And that is when the Bitcoin price goes up faster than the hash rate growth. And unfortunately for the miners, for the vast majority of the past year and a half or so, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen the hash rate explode and then the price kind of grind. And that's like the worst case scenario for miners, because it's costing them more and more to mine Bitcoin. And instead of a leverage play on Bitcoin, is kind of like a leverage play, but only to the downside, right? Like when Bitcoin goes up, then it goes up, then the miners go up the same as Bitcoin. and when Bitcoin crashes, it goes down twice as hard. So unfortunately, that's been the case. But just because that's been the case in the past, I don't predict that that's always going to be the case, because we have seen short durations where the hash rate growth is slower, the price growth is faster than the hash rate growth, and that happened in February of last year. So of course not February of this year, it kind of sucked, but February of last year, of 2024, we saw a brief moment when the hash rate was not growing as fast as the price, and that was off of the ETF approval news. And then we saw another time with the Trump bump after the 2024 election in November. So those two times, if you look back on the history and the price performance, the miners did outperform Bitcoin during those two brief windows, just those 2 months, and then it underperformed kind of all the rest of the months. So yeah, if we ever get a time again when the price just explodes absolutely crazily, and the hash rate growth is not able to keep up with the price growth, then we'll see the miners go up. And I foresee that if the bull market is not over, which I don't think it is, if the bull run is still going to happen, I predict that there will be a time later on this year where that'll occur, where the miners will grow faster than Bitcoin, because the price grows faster than the hash rate. So that's all I wanted to say on the miners. And one last thing before we move on to the next story. During times like these, I just want to remind people of the importance of Bitcoin, right? Because a lot of people might be new. So obviously, I know you guys are not new in this room, but maybe our audience members who are watching, maybe there's somebody who's new who just got into Bitcoin, and then they're about to like table flip because they bought at 109 and now is 80 or 81 or whatever it is, right? So the unique thing about Bitcoin is that it's undilutable, which means that there's you've heard the 21 million cap, right? So because there's only, well, I mean, actually, there's not even 21 million, because a lot of it hasn't been, some of it hasn't been mined, and a lot of it has been lost, and all these factors. But assuming that it is 21 million, even if it is exactly 21 million, the max it could be, if you own, let's say, one Bitcoin, which granted is a lot, and you don't have to buy one at a time, but let's say if you own one Bitcoin, just for the sake of simplicity, then you own one out of 21 million. And no matter what happens, no matter how much Bitcoin drops, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, right? And what that means is that you have one out of 21 million of the entire pie, and that portion could only get bigger as people lose their coins, right? And every year there's gotta be some people that like mess up and they accidentally lose their passphrase, they accidentally just send it to the wrong address, whatever, right? There's a certain percentage of Bitcoin that gets lost every year. Even now that is super valuable, some people are still not careful and they lose it. So when that happens, your portion of the available Bitcoin increases. So and even if it doesn't increase, it can never decrease. Is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of the powerful idea behind Bitcoin, and that's kind of what makes it unique as well compared to other cryptos, right? Because I know like Litecoin and stuff like that is also capped, but like who uses Litecoin? Like who cares about Litecoin, right? Compared to other cryptos, there's a lot of it, most of it's uncapped, and I think that this is something that's like super unique about Bitcoin, and why it's important, and why you shouldn't panic, because no matter how low the price drops, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. And there's also the Saylor put, right? So this came from an argument, well, not really like an argument, but like Warren Buffett is famously very anti-Bitcoin. And he was like, during one of the investor conferences, he was like, somebody asked him about Bitcoin, and he said, I would not buy Bitcoin even if it dropped to $20. And Michael Saylor responded, if it drops to $20, he's going to buy all the Bitcoin in the world. So theoretically, because Bitcoin is capped, remember, there's only 21 million out of it. So if it ever dropped to $20 each, then Michael Saylor has enough money to just buy it all. So that means that theoretically it's actually impossible for Bitcoin to drop below $20 because you have that put, right? Of course, it would be kind of catastrophic if it dropped to $20, and surprise, I don't think it's going to happen, right? I don't think that that's like a shocking thing for me to say. That's very, very unlikely. But let's just say if it happened, then Saylor is going to buy it all, and the most you can lose is whatever the cost basis you bought at minus whatever it takes to get to 20. So you if you have one Bitcoin, you can at least recoup $20 per Bitcoin, worst case scenario.